This week, what do you do when she says she wants a deeper relationship, but puts an emotional wall up to prevent it from happening? Also, do women want the alpha male or the nice guy? Or do they expect both? Welcome to the talking phase. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Talking Phase podcast. My name is Tom, and I am joined, as always, by the beautiful, talented, and hilarious Pam. Pam, what's going on with you?
I'm cold, Tom. It's cold in North Carolina. I don't ever feel hilarious. So
Crimea River.
I'm glad that you find me funny. What's going on here? So with all of my going out, a lot of my friends are doing dry January. I wonder how many people that listen to the show are doing dry January. I hang out with people who are pretty big drinkers on the weekends. And so they probably need to dry out their livers a little bit. But, I only drink one day, usually a week. And so I am not doing dry January, but I don't know if our listeners are doing it. I would love to know. I would like to say that I'm not struggling with my empty nest, but
But you are.
Things are supposed to get easier, and instead they just kind of stay the same. So yeah, I'm struggling a little bit with that. I have not lived alone in my entire life. So from the minute I was born until Nikki moved out, I had never lived alone, and I'd say that it's considerably overrated. I like going, it's clean. I miss the hustle and the bustle. I miss the mess. I miss bitching at her for leaving her dishes in the sink or her laundry in the dryer. It's less homey without her here.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
That's all right. She's doing well. She's happy. At the end of the day, all we want is our kids to be happy. Everybody likes to remind me over and over and over again that I had her much longer than most people get to have their kids.
That's true.
But I try to remind them that she is also my best friend. So when your best friend has been living with you as a roommate for 8 years since she graduated from college, it is really hard I might need to get a roommate.
Yeah. So the moral of the story, don't be best friends with your kids. No, just kidding.
Oh, damn it. Hindsight is 2020. What's going on with you these days?
Well, I'll tell you, I think you should embrace that empty nest period. I think, I know that it's hard for a while. And it's interesting. 3.5 years ago, I moved to Florida, and I remember I drove across country for the first time in my life. I've flown across country 100 times, but the first time I ever drove it, and I pulled into my apartment or condo there. And I'd never been there. I'd rented it sight unseen. And I remember opening the door and walking in and going, wait a minute. I'm 52 years old, and this is the first time in my life I've ever lived alone.
Oh, you've been here then.
Yeah, it's a weird feeling. And I remember telling my sister-in-law about it. I was going, hey, Deneen, she called and said, hey, did you make it okay? And I said, yeah, it's weird. It's the first time I've ever lived alone. And she said, I've never lived alone.
So it's not that unusual.
Nope.
And, and you're married for a long time. And so you think like, I'm going to grow old with this person. I'm never going to be alone. And then you don't.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, let me tell you what's going on in my life. Here's something I just learned. Open enrollment period was just, not too far back. And my twins turned 26 in March.
Oh, happy birthday.
They get booted off my insurance when they turn 26. But here's the deal. According to the insurance companies, that's not a life event, which means, like if you have a baby,
right,
you can add them to your insurance. But if your kids turn 26, you can't take them off your insurance. They are forcibly taken off your insurance, but it still costs you for the rest of the year. So I have to pay for the full family plan for the whole year.
That's is that your work insurance?
Oh, no, that's insurance in general. And I escalated all over the place asking these questions during open enrollment. And it's just total BS. But anyway, it's stupid. So
that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
I know. For me to insure my 2 boys for 2 months of this year, I have to pay for 12 months of insurance for them.
Boo.
So, yeah,
you were going to save some money. Did they have other insurance at least that they could have gone on?
Yeah, they are moving. Their life event is they turn 26, so they get work insurance through their workplace. They could have been getting insurance this whole time, but it's been on mine, and that's fine. I'm happy to have them on there. But now they have to move on to their own insurance. And so now we're double paying. So I'm paying and they don't get to be insured, but they're paying and get to be insured. It's stupid. So anyway, lesson learned.
Oh,
I thought about trying to figure out how to put them on Obamacare for a couple of months. I don't know. It's just, anyway, it pissed me off, but I'm a nice guy, but that kind of pissed me off.
nice guys finish last.
Ooh, it's funny you should say that. Brian, I want to ask you a question. Pam, I'm glad you just said that because we're going to talk about nice guys today.
We are.
But nice guys in dating.
Oh,
So,
that's not you. I was kidding.
Brian, you're not a dating guy anymore. You're married. You have kid. You're settled down. But you did date at some point. Were you the nice guy?
I was the nice guy, Tom. So for folks playing along in the home game who've been listening for a while, you might remember I used to be morbidly obese. So I was 385 pounds. And for me, it was my personality was what I would use to compensate for my lack of physical attractiveness. So I ended up finding myself just kind of by default being the nice guy. Like I was always really, really buddy with a bunch of girls. Like I was always the best friend or oh, you're like a brother to me. So yeah, 100% I played the nice guy role.
Friend zoned a lot.
Oh, friend zone was my middle name.
We've never done an episode on being friend zoned, but it's probably out there.
I could write a book.
We should. So here's the thing. Here's what's an interesting phenomenon. The reason I wanted to talk about nice guys today is because I saw a TikTok, and anybody who's listened to this show for more than 1 week knows that half of these topics come from some TikTok that I watched. But I watched this TikTok the other day and I was so disgusted by this guy. So I saw some dude, he's in his, 20s or 30s. And he was wearing a gold chain. I'm 100% sure he owns bedazzled jeans. I mean, he's just that kind of a douchebag. And he was saying to the camera, he said, women are repulsed by nice guys. So, and then he went on and, so this douchebag, he's decided to share his alpha knowledge with the rest of us, lower mortals, right? But I will tell you right now, I was so repulsed by him, I didn't even finish the TikTok, even though it obviously made an impact because here we are talking about it. But he apparently has a whole series out there of, basically how to be an alpha, which
he's trying to help. He's trying to help men get women with these wonderful videos.
Yeah. What a douche. I'm sorry. He just grossed me out. And before I swiped on his video to get out of it, he did mention one rule that I want to share and I want to ask your opinion about.
Okay.
He said, men need to be in charge and women like that. And part of being in charge is that you don't text too much. As a matter of fact, he has a 1 text per date rule. So if you go on a date with this guy, he's going to text you 1 time afterwards and say, let's go out next Friday or whatever. And and he won't the rest of the week or however long, there's not going to be a follow up with that, according to him.
How old was he?
Late 20s, early 30s.
All right. Well,
so
clearly that's why that generation is having so much trouble dating.
God, he bugged the shit out of me. Just all I could think about the whole time was bedazzled jeans and a douchebag. What a douche nozzle. Anyway, what are your thoughts? First off, what are your thoughts about alpha and what he said about being repulsed by nice guys? And at some point in the next part of our conversation, I want to talk about the definition of a nice guy, but tell me what your thoughts are first.
Well, in my 20s, before I was even married the first time or after my first marriage, but before my second marriage, I did the most dating. And there were definitely nice guys and there were definitely assholes. I was extremely shallow at that point in my life, right out of that marriage. And I would say that I probably was really full of myself also. And so I'm not going to sit here and lie and tell you that I was drawn to the nice guys because for whatever reason, what happens in our brains at that age, and I really don't have any common sense explanation for it. I was only ever attracted to the men who gave me a run for my money, the men who presented as a challenge, the men who didn't love bomb, the men who weren't always blowing up your phone because we didn't have texting back then. When can we go out? I really like you, compliment after compliment. I wasn't attracted to those guys. In hindsight, I certainly wish I had been.
Right.
And then if we fast forward to now, there's absolutely no way that I would date somebody who's not a nice guy. Like that's so important to me, is kindness and just being nice and just that characteristic. I see you wanting to say something.
Yeah. So that you just said a really important word, kind, because I've actually prepared for this episode probably more than any episode. And it's not that this is more important to me. It's just, it's a fun topic for me.
Good.
and
You know,
so-
I never prepare. So whatever I say is just what comes to mind. So you never know.
It's true. Yeah. So by the way, for those listening, I actually do have notes, and I've written bullet points and stuff. It's not a script by any stretch, but just topics that I would like to touch on. And Pam's literally writing in her side of the document. I'll wing it.
That's exactly
I
right.
love it.
If you get the real me that way, I don't even know what's going to come out of my mouth. So stay tuned.
Yeah, I think it's great. Well, so in speaking, I've spoken to a bunch of people. I don't want to say done interviews, but I've spoken to a bunch of people, including Laura. And for those, if this is your first episode listening, Laura is this woman I'm seeing, and she's awesome. And I've always, just like Brian just said, I've always thought I was the nice guy. And she said, and I didn't ask her. I said, do you, Laura, prefer the alpha or the nice guy? And she said, neither. I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, I prefer the kind man. And I said,
good
isn't
answer.
that just the nice guy? And she said, no. And she sent me this website that talks about nice guys and what it really means to be a nice guy. So Brian, I'm going to tell you right now, according to this nice guy term, you're not the nice guy either. If you are, you're a horrible human being, because it's key points about nice guys is they have a hidden agenda, which is, while appearing friendly and helpful, they often have an underlying motive to gain romantic attention or sexual favors. They have a victim mentality. They have passive aggressive behavior. And they are distinct from a genuinely good or kind person because they're authentic. And even though they're nice, they're still fairly assertive. They can express their needs and desires directly, even without being a dick about it. Basically, it's not what the site says, but
that's a very diverse. That sounded like you were describing two different people. You know, somebody that has an agenda and somebody who is.
I was. So I said the nice guys have a hidden agenda, victim mentality, passive aggressive behavior.
And
they are distinct from a good or a kind person because they are authentic and they are assertive while not being a jerk, basically.
Okay.
And so anyway, I think that we have to have, for the rest of our conversation, I think we have to have three different definitions instead of just nice or alpha or nice or douche. It's nice, kind, or alpha. And that kind is in the middle. And when Laura said that to me, and she said, you're not the nice guy. You're definitely not the alpha guy. Thank God. But I'm the kind guy. And I believe I am the kind guy. And I've always tried to be the kind guy. Now, I can be a dick. Don't get me wrong. And you pointed out, like every week we do this podcast, you point out that I can be a dick. But I'm a generally nice
I don't know. Not every week.
Anyway, so that being said, with that different definition, Pam, you just said, and you used the word kind, which is why I thought, what a great time to do this. So you used to like, correct me if I'm wrong, you used to prefer kind of that alpha mentality, but now you're more of the kind mentality. Is that accurate?
Yeah, because I don't want to do the chasing anymore. In my 20s, I had, I didn't care. The more somebody wasn't interested in me, the more I was determined to wear them down and make them be interested in me. And I was successful a lot of the time. And so, it was a lot of fun. The guys that fall over you are, just to use a term of nice guys finish last, that came from the fact that the more a man dotes on you and is affectionate and says everything you want to hear, the less interested you are in that man. And that's how we are, I think, when we're younger. I think once we've been through one or two really bad marriages or some really bad relationships, we are completely burnt out on that type of man. And yeah, maybe he's the alpha, but I know you'll remember that TikTok. I made it and it did like flew off of TikTok. It was the one where the man said a woman wants a man to lead. And
Every woman is what he said.
right. And I said, well, I'm a woman and I don't want to be led. And I read all the comments on that video. And my takeaway from that kind of did change the way that I looked at it a little bit, because I've watched a lot of his videos, and what he was saying is not that a woman wants a man to tell her what to do, but a woman wants a man that will take charge in a situation where the masculine persona is more appropriate than the feminine persona. And feminist, not feminist, all of that aside, I want a man who knows to walk on the outside of the street. I want a man who opens my car door even if I get there before him. I want a man who, hey, will pick a restaurant and say, this is where I want to go. And a lot of women don't want that. They want so much power within the relationship that they're not looking at the nice guys. They're only looking at the alphas, the people that will take control of a situation. So I'm torn. Kindness goes without saying. I've said that since the day we started this podcast. Somebody who's kind to me and to others is probably one of, if not the most important thing, as far as a personality trait goes. But when we're comparing kind, nice, and alpha, I think I want a combination of all three. I want somebody who's kind, and I want somebody who's nice. But I also do want somebody who's not afraid to take charge, whether that's in a situation, whether that's in the bedroom, whether that's just telling me what he wants versus doing whatever I want. There's something to be said for a man that stands up for himself. And there's a lot of welcoming doormats out there. I've dated a lot of men who just let women walk all over them. And I don't think that women like that trait in a man. And I think we equate it with nice guys.
And I agree. But I think a lot of people, including the three of us on this show, didn't know what the nice guy definition was. And so I think kind was a little bit different because, again, according to what everything I'm reading on all these sites here is that nice guys have that hidden agenda. They're the victim and that they're very passive aggressive, even though they're basically fake nice is what it is.
I mean, it sounds a lot like my ex-husband because he was fake nice and he was passive aggressive. And it turned out that he was just a really good narcissist. I thought I married a really nice guy and he wasn't. So he definitely had a hidden agenda. And I know what it is, but I won't talk about it on the show. But with that said, I think that when we're like, we can look at a definition for a million things, and that's not what we're talking about. That's not what the public is talking about. We're not looking up the definition of it. We're just saying we want somebody who's nice. Or, yes, he could be passive aggressive. Yes, he could have a hidden agenda. But I don't think that the average person is saying, wow, I met this guy and he's really nice. Those things aren't in our mind.
No, I understand.
So I think that like if we're talking about nice versus alpha, I think that there's maybe again it's on my wish list of impossible things, but I think there's a balance between those things.
So it's interesting that you should say it that way. Again, you don't know what I'm going to be talking about, so you're over here like leading me right where I wanted to go, which is perfect.
You're welcome.
What's that?
I said, you're welcome.
Thank you. Because as I said, I kind of prepared for this. So this week, as I was thinking about this topic, I went around the office and I interviewed a bunch of people. And again, that's a very strong word for asking a couple of simple questions. But I asked, I think it was 5 different men. They're all married now, all but one. So 4 married men and a single man. None of them are, I'm by far the oldest one. So these are younger people in their 30s and 40s. And then I asked the women in the office the opposing question. So what I asked the men was, do you or did you enjoy or prefer the chase? I mean, did you like to chase or do you want to chase? Mm-hmm. And 100% said, oh my hell, I hated that. This whole hard to get bullshit, they hate it. So again, I'm talking about 5 guys here. So, and I can add myself. So 6. Brian, was there ever a chase in your world? Can you say you hated it or not?
He fell asleep.
He's muted. Okay, so anyway, the point is 6 out of 6, and I'm assuming Brian would say 7 out of 7, hate the chase. We hate thinking about when it's okay to text or call after the date.
It's always okay right after the date.
No,
says
it is
a
not.
nice
Wait till we get
woman.
to what the women say.
Oh, okay.
Okay. They hate everything about playing it cool. They just want to be themselves.
Mm.
That's what every one of these men said. It's like there was no equivocation. Now, the women, some of them want to be pursued, others don't. But those that
Hey, Tom,
do,
by the way, to your question, I hit the wrong button, so that's why you couldn't hear me.
Oh.
No, I hate chasing. It was one of the worst things growing up. It was insane, and also I didn't know how to do it because I was a fat dude. So
yes, there you go, 7 out of 7. So I'm going to guess that we could ask 700 men, and at least 600 of them would agree with us.
Especially men our age,
Yeah, but these are, I mean, I was talking to people in their 20s all the way up until the 50s. So
Okay.
it's again, 7 is not a representative sample. A statistician would shoot me for even saying that, but I think that we're, I think we're
I
pretty
get
safe.
it.
But so when I asked the women if they wanted to be pursued or chased, it was kind of half and half. Some do, some don't. But those that said they did said, but it's a total turnoff if the pursuit is too obvious.
Right. We don't want the love bombing and the guys that are up our butts.
Yeah. Some, again, this is pretty much 50-50. Some want to get that next day text after the date or even that night. Others don't. But those that don't want it the next day said, but it's a turnoff if the text doesn't come soon enough. And I said, what does soon enough mean? I don't know.
That's
I'm like, how the fuck?
minutia.
Yeah. But then I asked about alpha versus nice guy, and it was more age dependent. I will tell you right there. It's kind of evenly split 50-50. The younger women want the alpha. The older women want the nice guy. But then one of them who's kind of in the middle, she's like in her, I think, early 30s, who's married. She said when she met her husband, and they've been together 7 years now. When she met him, she said, I wanted him to be the alpha and pursue me. But now I want him to be the nice guy.
100%. That's exactly how I would feel.
Yeah, but no wonder men can't figure this shit out.
Well, she's not. I mean, it doesn't guarantee it's going to happen. She just got really lucky. It sounds like if he started out in alpha and now he's just a great guy, that's like winning. Like he
so
did
my
everything right.
5 cents, Pam. Not this is my show. It's super conflicting though, because when I was the air quotes nice guy, right, and I was like the friend zoned, like best friend brother kind of figure, women opened up like crazy to me. They would tell me anything, right? And then if I ever showed any interest back in them, they would look at me like I was like the most revolting figure they've ever talked to. But if like there was a guy who was being a complete douche to them, they would tell me of how hot he is. And oh my gosh, if only we got together. And I'm just like, what am I missing here? And I think that's to Tom's point, is that men are told one thing and then watch the women that they are trying to court do another. And it's a very tough kind of yin and yang of knowing what women are saying that's actually what they want to hear versus what they're hoping to hear, right? And that's where I think a lot of guys get stuck between this whole nice guy versus alpha versus kindness.
Listen, we are complicated creatures. I will never say that we're not complicated. Did you ask anything else, Tom?
No, that was pretty much it. It was more just that pursuit mentality and playing it cool versus just being yourself and doing what seems right. Men just want to be themselves, and women
don't know what we want.
Play a game.
Well, I don't know that it's a game, and I can't speak for all women. I can only speak for myself, and those women spoke for themselves. I don't want to play any games. I'm well past the age of wanting somebody to pretend they don't like me so that I'll like them. Because quite honestly, if I just said this in our last episode, if I'm talking to somebody and we're having a great conversation and there's some flirting going on and they don't pursue me, I'm not interested in that. I don't give it a second thought, and I don't think about pursuing them, and sometimes I'm even a little bit disappointed that they didn't pursue me. And that's for me to deal with. And I think a lot of people have said that I come off as very uninterested and very aloof when it comes to men. And that's not because I'm playing a game. That's because for the most part, I'm at a point in my life where somebody really has to engage me for me to be interested. Somebody would have to pursue me. Somebody would have to show interest in me. I'm kind of done wondering if somebody is interested or not interested. The only way I'm going to believe it and know it is if somebody tells me. So as a 57-year-old woman, I don't like games and I don't need somebody to chase me, but I certainly do need them to show some interest and to pursue that interest. So I don't know that all women are an enigma. I'm talking about when I was in my 20s, wanting to be chased, liking the game. I'm not that person anymore. And people who listen to our show aren't in their 20s for the majority. And I'm going to stick by what I said, which is, we do want a kind man, and we do want somebody who is manly when the situation calls for it. I mean, I don't find it to be complicated. We are known to be complicated, but I don't feel like I'm complicated. I feel like all anybody has to talk to, if somebody talks to me and then they send me a message and say, listen, I really enjoyed talking to you. I'd like to take you to dinner. I'd like to get together. Are you interested in that? They're going to get a yes or a no.
So
I mean,
the complication, Pam, is not within Pam.
right.
Complication is between Pam and the lady that I met last week, who is repulsed by the text the next day or is upset that he didn't play a game. It's the complexity is that men have no idea which woman we're meeting, Pam or someone not like Pam.
But it's the same for us. It's the exact same for us. When I meet a man, I just, that same exact scenario that I just played. If I am talking to a man for an hour and we're flirting and having a great conversation and I feel like, all right, clearly there's some chemistry here. And then crickets. How am I supposed to know? Was it a game? Was he just killing time? Was he not interested? Was he trying to see if I was interested just for fun? Like, it's no simpler.
Oh, no, I understand. You're talking about pre-first date. I'm talking about you've been on a date.
Oh, well, when it comes to dating, and especially with that guy on TikTok, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I don't understand these complicated women. It's so fucking basic to me. Like, we go on a date, we like each other, we say we really enjoyed the date. He says, I'd like to get together again. I say, I like that too. I like usually for me, 90% of the time, I get a text after the date the same night. And I love that. Even if it's just like a 5-minute conversation, had a great time, really liked getting to know you. But like, I don't want to talk to somebody all day, every day if I'm dating them, but I do like open lines of communication. And I don't understand what's wrong with women in any age that I can't say that because I already admitted that I was a little bit of a gaming person in my 20s, but like at our current state of life, like if you're looking for a game, like just get out of the way and let the rest of us date the nice, kind men.
I agree 100%. I will tell you, I've, in the 5 years that I've been divorced and dating, I've tried to figure out who Tom, the dating guy, is. And, haven't done that in a long, long time. Right. So it's like, you're in a whole new world. Dating apps didn't exist last time I was dating. There's just a lot of stuff that came about. And so I would, I mean, me, I'm pretty open. I'm transparent. I tell you how it is. This is who I am. And this is who I am when I go on a date. Well, I was told early on in my, whatever you call this, dating career, that,
that's a good one.
That I'm a lot, that I speak my mind, and that I get pretty enthusiastic about, whatever we're doing on the date, I mean, oh, isn't this really awesome and all that kind of stuff. And so for a while there, I tried to dampen my enthusiasm. or, I don't know, calm myself down so that I didn't come across as needy almost.
Extra.
Yeah, extra. But you know what? I am extra. That's who I am. And if who I'm with can't handle Tom, fuck them. I mean, and I don't mean that in a mean way. It's like, I'm not going to waste my time with someone that I don't want to spend the rest of my life censoring myself
Right.
to not be extra, because I am. And
No, 100%.
and I'm me, period. And that also means, by the way, I don't chase. That's part of that is, I will ask somebody out. We will go out and, but if she isn't showing the same level of interest, if she's not texting me saying, how's your day going? Or if she's
Right.
not, tell me about your kids while I'm asking about her family, if she's not showing that same level of interest, I'm out, because it's just not worth it.
I'm the same exact way. If somebody tries to play a game with me, if I'm texting, if even after a date, if I'm having a conversation with a guy and he just disappears in the middle of that conversation and then tries to pick it up the next day or the day after, I've already lost 50% of my interest in seeing him again. Because
by the way, here's an interesting little thing that happened. Remember, we were talking a couple of weeks ago that I met Laura's kids. And we were driving with her twins. They were in the back seat of my car, and Laura and I are in the front. And I'd met them. I mean, they were literally in my car, and I couldn't remember their names.
That's
and I felt really bad that I couldn't remember their names. And they kind of started joking with me. You don't even know our names, do you? And I'm like, oh shit, and I looked at Laura and I said, well, you probably don't know my kids' names, but she has an excuse. She's never met them. Right. You know what she did?
What?
She rattled them off.
Well, good for her.
Yeah. And I wasn't testing her. That wasn't a test. It was me trying to get out of the truck.
You're flattered.
But the fact that she knew my kids' names was like, oh my gosh. Not only has she been, I don't know, paying attention isn't the right word, but she's paid attention to the stories I've told and the conversations we've had. And has
a good memory.
She has a good memory. But it means, she's not going to even try to remember that unless she cares. And so she's putting some effort into the relationship, and it meant a lot to me, which is weird. That's never happened,
No, I get that. No one has ever remembered your kids' names.
Well, no, just not this quickly.
You said that's never happened before.
Well, yeah.
Somebody out there remembers your kids' names.
Yeah. Anyway, so for me, I think that it comes down to this. I'm not a nice guy per the definition here on the internet. I'm definitely not an alpha, and I don't want to be an alpha, because I think, by the way, they're douchebags. And I think women who go after alpha, I think they're making a horrible mistake. Again, that's really one of the questions that you should ask somebody. That should be on a woman's list. Do you own bedazzled jeans?
Well, I don't know that there's any alphas that own bedazzled jeans.
I think they all do.
You do?
Oh, I think that's like at the alpha store. Anyway,
so
that's just
while we're sitting here, I Googled alpha to see what it would come up with as far as, in relation to a person. And it says alpha refers to a dominant person or their behavior, especially with respect to socially aggressive, hyper masculine men. So, in that definition, yeah, that sounds terrible. I think when we look up textbook definitions, we're getting very, hyper masculine. I don't know that I've ever dated or married somebody who I felt was hyper masculine, quite honestly. When I think of alpha, I only think about it to the extent of, standing in front of you if somebody's coming at you with a knife, or walking on the outside of the street, or, just like a manly guy.
Well, that's just chivalry.
Right. Certainly not hyper masculine, but if I meet an alpha guy and I like it, I'll be sure to talk about it on the show.
Yeah, let's hear about it. Well, okay, so I think we beat this to death. Guys out there, don't be alpha, don't be the victim mentality or hidden agenda. Try to be just kind. Find a middle ground.
Honestly, and I post about kindness all the time on my Facebook page. I feel like there's not enough of it these days. So if you're dating, the best thing that you should ask for and the best thing that you should be is kind.
By the way, just one last thing. I totally forgot. I needed to throw this out there. There's a book that I've just started reading as part of this episode, as a matter of fact, called The Way of the Superior Man. And it's
Oh,
about this. It's about being a good man without being, a wimp or anything like that. And so anyway, there's a little plug for the book. I'm only, I don't know, maybe an eighth of the way through it, but it's really
trying to
good
be a
so far.
better person, are you?
Sure.
Is that why you're reading it? I mean, is it like a self-help book?
Yeah. Well, kind of. Yeah. I mean, I guess so. I guess you would call it that.
So this show isn't enough for you to become the best person? I
I'll
say
do a
all the
full-on
time, I think
review
I
at some
learn more
point.
about myself when you ask me questions on the show, and I'm like, oh God,
Yeah.
even just looking back on past episodes, I've learned a lot about myself. But all right, with that said, I hope that you are a kind person out there.
You've got mail.
All right. I was going to say, send us your comments on, what kind of man you're looking for. If you're a woman listening to the podcast and you really like those alpha men or the nice guys, let us know in the comments. And let's move on. So Pam and Tom, I've been dating this amazing woman, an email from a man, for about a year now, and I'm feeling really stuck. From the beginning, things have been great. She's funny, smart, and honestly, I could see myself building something real with her. She's even told me that she wants the same. The issue is that every time I try to take things to the next level, whether that's getting more serious emotionally or even just spending more time together, she seems to pull back. It's like she puts up this invisible wall. When I've brought it up, she says she wants the relationship, but her actions just don't match her words. She keeps me at arm's length, and I'm left feeling like I'm doing something wrong or just not enough. I don't want to push her away by pressuring her, but I also can't help feeling stuck in this limbo. I really like her, and I think we could have something great if she just let us move forward. What do I do here? How do I figure out whether she's just scared of commitment or if she's not really into this as much as she says? I'm trying to be patient, but I don't know how much longer I can keep this up without knowing where I stand. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for doing what you do. It really helps to hear the different perspectives. Best, frustrated in Florida. Frustrated in Florida. I'm going to let you start on this one, Tom.
Ooh.
I'll
I feel
go.
bad for him. He's in this relationship a full year, and feels that she's kept him at arm's length.
She's funny, smart, and honestly, yeah, I'm going back to read this. She says that she wants the same things that he wants. So this is definitely a case of actions and words being completely different things.
Yeah. And usually I think virtually every piece of advice we've given before this show has always been, oh, you just need to talk it out.
Yeah.
This one doesn't sound like a talk it out kind of a situation. My personal opinion, if I cut all the way to the credits, if you can't feel comfortable with someone after a full year of an exclusive relationship, could you ever? I mean, what would change in order for you to feel like you're not at arm's length anymore? How could that even happen? And I just think that people can put on an act for a little while, 3 months, 6 months, maybe even 7 months. But if this is how she's been for a year, this is her. This is her. That's my personal opinion. What do you think?
Well, they've hit a wall, clearly. It didn't happen overnight. Sounds like he's consistently been pushing to take this relationship to the next level. And I don't know what that means. He says, and let me go back because I don't want to misquote him. She wants the relationship, but her actions don't match. She keeps me at arm's length. So he doesn't want to push her away by pressuring her because he really likes her. And he's got a year invested in this, and he really feels like there's potential. There's a humongous problem here. He doesn't know what it is. I would love to believe that he has sat down with her and said, what's going on? I keep trying to move forward and you shut down. Sometimes that's from past trauma, past relationships, total fear of commitment, fear of getting heartbroken. I mean, there's a million reasons why after a year she says she wants this and then doesn't act like she wants this. So I wouldn't say there's no hope. And I wouldn't say that because she's been this way after a year. I don't know if they spend 2 days a week together, 1 day a week together, every day together. I assume they're not living together. I assume that's one of the next steps he would like to get to. But I think that the most important thing in this whole email is that the communication is terrible between you guys. Because you wrote this letter, you were very clear and very concise. And I find it hard to believe that if you were this clear and concise with her, and yes, you might take a risk that she may pull away, but at that point, you're not losing anything if she does. And maybe you could get to the bottom of this. I mean, if she's worth it, if she's somebody that you can really imagine a future with, then you need to find out why this wall is coming up. But I say don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I say this is something that you guys need to work through. You know, there's premarital counseling, and I'm sure that there's counseling for people that are dating. Maybe something happened in her past and she'd be willing to see somebody and get through that with you, and you guys would have a great relationship.
Wow. Well, first thing he says, when I've brought it up, so they have had the conversation at least once. So that's why I think, look, you've already had the conversation, and she says she wants it, but then her actions don't match her words. So that to me says that there's something. Words are not going to fix this. That's the reason I throw that out there. The second thing,
you're right.
Yeah. The other thing is there's this what is it? A condition. That's not the right word, but anxious avoidant. Have you heard of that?
Oh God, I've dated an anxious avoidant. Yes, I'm very familiar with this.
And I don't know, I'm not a psychologist, nor do I play one on TV, but my understanding, and you would understand it better, but it's that they get, things start going well, they get a little anxious about things, and so then they do whatever it takes to avoid it. Basically, they become avoidant of the relationship, they pull back, and then they regret it, and so then they kind of get back into it, and then they get anxious again, and so then they pull back.
Right, it's a real problem.
Yeah, and she may be anxious avoidant. Sorry. That was work trying to call me. She may be an anxious avoidant, which again, it goes back to, and this sounds people are going to think, based on the fact that I said you should walk away from this lady, that I'm just like ready to walk away from every relationship, and I'm not. But at the same time, if you've got a year invested in this and you are feeling at arm's length and things aren't going well, you've had the conversations, and now Pam is saying you should get counseling. It's like, holy shit. Before you're even in a committed long-term living together relationship, you're already in counseling. That's like buying a car. I mean, taking the car to the mechanic before you even buy it.
So you're saying he should bail. Like it's done.
I would.
Let it go. Well,
I mean,
all right. Well, there's Tom summing it all up for you. Clearly, I feel otherwise. I mean, a year is a long time, but it's not a lifetime. I've been single for 4 years. I mean, I've dated and had relationships within that 4 years, but like I haven't met the person that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. If after a year, the person that I was with, and let's say not living with, just dating, wasn't ready for the next step, I would be much more inclined to deliver an ultimatum about, hey, I feel like I use this term now in 2 episodes, but shit or get off the pot. Mm-hmm. If the shoe fits, wear it. So I just feel like, you're currently ready to move on. You're there and you deserve that. It's a year. I mean, a year in your life, again, not a tremendous long time, but you don't want it to be 2 or 3 years. So my best advice would be deliver a kind ultimatum, but only for your own well-being. Listen, this isn't going anywhere. If you aren't ready to take the next step, we need to talk about why. Maybe she was abused. Maybe she was in a horrible relationship. And, I would never say just dump her. I'm not Tom. I wouldn't say just dump her. Talk to her. Tell her that you've had enough. Let her do the dumping. I know that that's not always a pleasure, but if you give somebody an ultimatum and they can't do what you're asking, then she's probably really damaged. And she's going to have this problem in her next relationship. But if she really likes you as much as she says in words that she does, maybe she's willing to do the work. And maybe then you guys will get to the next phase and you'll look back on this and say, thank God I didn't dump you.
Maybe.
That's what I got.
There you go. I love it.
Did we just wrap that up that easily? Look at us go.
Look at us.
All right, you guys. So I don't know if we helped. You have to pick. You can comment and let us know whether you would just dump her or not, or if you would prefer to just be dumped. But please keep sending us your emails. We do our best. It's not always this easy. You can send them in to talkingphase@gmail.com. You know that I read them all because I tell you every single week I read them all. And I let you know when we're going to read them on the show. Maybe you could let your girlfriend listen to this show and she'll realize that you are on your last leg of this relationship. So whether it's just asking for advice or giving us your opinion or giving us ideas for a show, please send them in. Again, it's talkingphase@gmail.com.
That's awesome. And thank you, Pam, for being an awesome co-host. Brian,
so
for being
welcome.
a great producer. Thanks to everyone out there for listening and growing our Talking Phase family. I will tell you that while we've been on this show, while we've been recording this episode, we got a notification from Spotify about a brand new milestone that our show just reached on Spotify. So thank you for everything you're doing in terms of ratings and reviews. Please keep rating and reviewing, sharing this with your friends and your family. Following us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We're all over the place. Pam is doing a great job over there. I suck at it now. We do this every single Friday. And so with that, it's time to sign off. So Pam, Tom, signing off, guys.
Have a great day, everybody. I hope TikTok doesn't get banned. Have a nice week, a next month, year. Happy January.